Hi, this is Thomas, and in this episode, I'd like to share with you the full cost of owning a property in Singapore. Now, it doesn't necessarily just apply to private properties, it is exactly the same for HDB, commercial, and industrial properties. The fundamentals are all the same, and nothing is more important than planning your purchase even before you make that move. Now, you could probably be thinking of an upgrade or trying to buy a new property to improve your lifestyle. This video will go a long way for you if you understand the mechanics behind buying a property. Now, when people talk about the cost of owning a property, it goes above and beyond just the bank interest. All in all, there are 8 costs, and in this episode, I'm going to share with you all of them so that you can have more success in your real estate journey. Alright, so when it comes to breaking down the cost of owning the property, as I mentioned, there are 8 of them. You can actually look at it from 2 different angles. Okay, one of them are the recurring cost. The other one is what we call one-time cost. So on the left side of the screen, RC stands for recurring costs, and on the right side, I'm going to highlight it in black. It basically represents the one-time cost that you pay just to hold on to this property, right? So the terms are pretty self-explanatory. So for the yellow color, I'm just going to highlight all the recurring costs there is. So things like bank interest, recurring costs, CPF accrued interest is also recurring, and property tax, maintenance fee. So these 4 are the recurring costs of holding on to the property. For as long as you're holding on to it, every single month you would have to pay this cost, right? So the one-time costs are like your stamp duty, renovation, legal fee, and agent fee. These are the costs that you only have to pay one time. So as you can see, I've already input some numbers onto the screen, and this is based on a $1 million assumption. Okay, so if you were to buy a $1 million property, hold on to it for 10 years. This is approximately the cost that you have to incur. Now, if you want to find out about how I get to the numbers, you can actually contact me. However, if you're clear or if you're taking down notes, feel free to use this as a template if you want to buy a property, right? So the total cost of holding on to this property for 10 years, $1 million property over 10 years is approximately $307,871. Now, this is a crazy amount of money to hold on to this property, okay? So this basically means, if you look at my chart over here, right, I drew a XY axis to explain to you the consequences of what happens when your property price remains stagnant for 10 years, right? Which means you buy a property for $1 million, over 10 years, your property still remains at $1 million. The cost that you would have to cough out as an owner would be $307,871, and that is a lot of money, right? So before you buy a property, you need to understand the cost so that you can do a projection to determine whether or not this property is a fair value. Because if you were to buy it for $1 million and the price doesn't go up, you incurring the cost of $307,000, it doesn't make sense, right? To own a property and to lose money on it. So I'm just going to break down the cost for you every single month, because some of you might not realize that, $307,000. Anyway, I buy the property to stay, so it's fine, right? So $307,871 over 10 years, if you divide it by 120 months, okay, the cost for you to hold on to this property every single month for as long as the property price does not appreciate, you actually have to pay $2,565 every single month, right? So when it comes to deciding whether or not it's worth it to buy this property for own stay or for investment, you have to benchmark the cost versus the rental. So assuming you buy this property, which does not have the ability for the price to appreciate to 1.3 million after 10 years, you would be losing approximately $2,565 every single month. So assuming if the rental in that area can only fetch you $2,500 per month, does it make sense to buy the property? Okay, this is because when you buy a property, you have to do a down payment of 25%, which is $250,000, right? So that is essentially you locking your $250,000 in that property and you collecting a rental of $2,500 per month, and the property price does not appreciate, which means every single month you're only earning $65 from that property, right? So now what if you are thinking of buying the property to stay in this property, right? So you know that if you buy this property to stay, you are going to incur a cost of $2,565 a month. This is just cost, okay? Guys, you have to remember that when you pay mortgage, it goes into two different areas, right? Number one is it goes into your principal. The other part goes into your interest, right? Interest is cost and money that does not come back to you unless the price of your property appreciates. So this on the right side of the screen, this $2,565, right? This is just the cost of holding on to it. So if you're paying rental to stay in this property, it's $2,500 per month. And owning this property, you need to pay $2,565 a month. Now, in this case, I would challenge you to think, right? Does it make more sense to pay rental or to own this property? So the difference between renting and owning this property is that when you pay rental, your equity is not stuck in the property. Now, this is extremely important because the moment you buy this property to stay, you have to cough out the initial payment, right? Your down payment of 25% and all that stuff, legal fees just to hold on to this property. And when you pay rental and you don't lock your equity into this property, your money could be working hard for you elsewhere, giving you better returns. So if you have identified that the purpose of buying this property is to stay in this property, owning it would cause you to lose $2,565 a month, renting it will cause you to lose $2,500 a month. Now, in this case, I would say it definitely makes more sense to pay rental because in both scenarios, you're going to lose the money anyway, right? So I'm just going to show you an example of this is what we call a time chart, a historical time chart. Every property, if you go onto URA, you'll be able to find the price movement of that property over from the day it first started selling all the way to today. So let me just give you an example of this property called Cavan Suites, right? They started selling in the year 2010. And if I draw a line across, as you can see on my iPad, that in the past 10 years, the price have been stagnant, right? I mean, there's a bit of an appreciation right here from 2010 all the way to 2014, right? That is if you sell. However, if you buy this property and you don't sell, you're just staying in this property, anybody who bought in the Cavan Suites and hold on to it for the past 10 years, they would be incurring the cost of ownership themselves, right? Because the property price did not appreciate enough to cover the cost of ownership. Hence, the owners over there in Cavan Suites, right, they're basically just paying rental to themselves, right? And having their equity locked in this real estate, which to me, it doesn't make much sense. But I do understand that real estate is a very emotional purchase. You know, sometimes we buy a property doesn't mean because we want to make money from the real estate. Sometimes it just means that, you know, it fulfills an emotional need. Like I want to stay near my workplace. I want to be near the MRT. I just want to own an asset. I want to move out from my parents' place. There are a million emotional reasons why people buy a property, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, but I mean, that is provided you are okay to potentially lose the money. But let me just leave you with one thought, right? If you're going to lose the money, you might as well lose it on rental, right? And the thing is, you don't have to lock your equity into this property. So the next example I'd like to show you is this property called City Lights, okay? You can see over here that from 2010 all the way to 2019, the same 10 years, the price have been stagnant. But the only difference in this scenario is that the price actually went up from the day it was launched. So from when they first started selling pre-launch to when it was launched, there was a period of time where the price went up tremendously. So those people who bought it at the start, even if they wanted to stay, the price have already appreciated far enough to cover their cost of ownership and even help them to make a profit. So as owners, they are essentially staying in this property for free as compared to somebody who bought a property whose price didn't go up from day one all the way to when they sell. So if there's anything I can give to you for takeaway in this video, you just have to remember three things, okay? If you want to buy a property for own stay or investment, regardless whether or not you have intentions to sell the property, maybe you don't want to sell, maybe you just want to leave for the next generation, I urge you that it is always important to make provisions for if and when you need to sell. Right, because when you need to sell, let's say for example you want to migrate, there's a change in your family circumstances, you need to sell this property, you need to make sure that by then the property price would have appreciated above and beyond just your purchase price, but to help you cover the cost of ownership so that you as an owner get to stay for free, Either that as an investor, you get to make some money from your real estate. So that's the first point. Always inject logical thinking into your real estate purchase, regardless of how emotional it might be. The second thing to note is that you, as a property investor, you need to know that there are a lot of property buyers out there who are buying properties because they want to fulfill an emotional need. And for buyers who want to fulfill an emotional need, they are willing to pay the cost as long as it is still within their affordability. So let me give you an example. If you buy a $1 million property and you want to sell it at $1.2 million, the first owner selling to the second owner, it makes a $200,000 profit. Do you know for the second buyer to buy over the $1.2 million property, in terms of monthly mortgage, difference is just $500. So you know that it's still within affordable range for the property buyer to help the first owner to make a profit and also to cover the cost. And the third thing is, always do your planning before you buy a property. That is extremely important, because for those people who just buy a property and not think about it, you think it's a milestone, it's an achievement, you just want to do it as soon as possible, you're just buying because everyone else is doing it. Now that could be a very, very deadly mistake. So always remember, plan properly before you buy a property. And also, as property investors, you need to understand that there is a huge demand of buyers out there who wants to buy a property to fulfill an emotional need for as long as it's within their affordability. So there is still room for you to make money in real estate. And the third and most important thing is for you to understand the cost of owning the property, your holding horizon, how long you want to hold on to this property, whether or not you're able to cover the cost, have your profit and loss template ready even before you make that move. If you're looking to buy a real estate, these are things that you definitely need to consider and understand before you proceed. So if you found this video useful and you've learned something from it, consider subscribing to my YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Thomas Tong Real Estate. I will see you in the next video.